Hey guys, I am back with another flip through. This one is of the 2019 January to 2020 April sketchbook. I'm going to try to keep this brief, but you know me, I love to talk. And speaking of which, if you do want to see like the very fast version of this, I post a time-lapse version on my Instagram. It's like less than a minute long, so if you do want to see one without me talking, please head that way and you will find it there. And this guy here, so I'm going to talk a little bit about materials, inspiration, that kind of thing. And the sketchbook, it took me a long time to finish, which is really weird. Normally I kind of work on them for about 3 months at a time, sometimes longer if I'm doing more than one. And this one I kind of started, got about halfway through, and was like, I'm getting bad vibes. Put it aside. I'm like, I don't want to look at it, and then picked it up again way later. So it's got really weird vibes where half of it was done in one part of my life and then another like much later. So but anyway, so this is a watercolor figure and then a acrylic background. It was originally sort of like mustard color, and I really didn't love how that turned out. It kind of like washed her out. But I really enjoyed this color here. And here, this is watercolor. And I think I painted like a time-lapse version of this one. I kind of want to post it on here. I find nobody ever watches those, so I'm like, should I post it? I don't know. Anyway, I've used this like a drawing reference of this girl now for the second time. Originally, I did it in pencil, and I always love doing that. I love being able to see like a reference photo done with different styles, different materials, sometimes even different artists. I think that just can be like so cool and so fun to see. So I do love reusing something. So yeah. This page, I made this way back at the very beginning, and then I left it, and I'm like, I don't know how to complete this. For the longest time, it sat there empty, and I would look at it occasionally. I would flip through and be like, how am I going to complete this? How am I going to complete this? And then I bought a Cricut Explorer Air 2, which is an electric plotter, which is a machine that will cut something very precisely according to like an image input file that you do. And my idea was I wanted to create like my own stickers and to be able to cut and print them myself instead of sending them out to have someone else do that for me. And in my attempts on trying to do that, I decided to practice lots with like texting and stuff like that. So that's what this is. And at first I didn't know how to keep everything straight. So this is kind of a mess, but I think it kind of works with what it's saying. So yeah, it's kind of fun. This page here, very, very similar to this one here. But the funny thing is I made this almost a full year after this one and then just didn't realize that they were so close to each other physically in the book. This is, again, a watercolor image of the figure, and then the background this time was acrylic ink, which I prefer to acrylic, but, you know, it doesn't really make a huge difference. Very similar text, like it's almost identical. I don't know. Guess you don't change as much as you think you do over time. This one here, probably one of my favorite pages in the sketchbook. I really loved, I don't know if you guys remember, about 2 years ago, there was this trend of acrylic pour videos where you just like, you put this medium with a bunch of acrylic paint, swish it up, put it in a cup, put it on a canvas and flip it over and just sort of let it pour all over the place. And you can create these like really cool sort of abstract fluid images. And it looks really fun and cool. I think I tried it years and years ago when the trend was first kind of getting started. And I found I didn't really love it because, I found you have no control at all. So, but it was still quite fun and great experimentation. And I do love like using alcohol inks and stuff like that. So this was very similar to that. I used acrylic ink instead, and you have a little bit more control because you get at least in terms of like placement, you can kind of have control over that. But I love this sort of like fluid and uncontrollableness of this page compared to this, which was color pencil, which you usually is very controlled because you're doing it very with like a lot of intention, but having that same kind of color scheme as here, I think that was really fun to do. And just, yeah, so it turned out it turned into an effect that I really enjoyed. This is from the Katherine Ryan stand-up comedy series Glitter Room. I love stand-up comedy, and I find it used to be a lot harder like a couple years ago, although now it's a lot more common, because stand-up comedy was so hard to find when it wasn't like reliant on shock value and like making fun of minority groups, because like, I don't know, I just never found that particularly funny, and I found it was just so hard to find comedians who didn't rely on that. You know, like the whole industry was filled with like Russell Peters and Seinfeld and that kind of thing. Like, I don't find that funny at all. And so now there's this like wave of stand-up comedy which doesn't rely on that, and I love it so much. So like John Mulaney, Catherine Ryan, Eliza Schlesinger are like some of my favorite comedians. And so this was from one of the stand-up comedy shows. I really kind of like this idea of like, you know, boys are taught to be somebody, girls are taught to find somebody. I hate that it's true, but unfortunately a big part of it is true. This is from a series that I'm doing called Lessons Learned, and it was originally a challenge that someone posted on Tumblr, I think, where on your birthday you write however many lessons for however many years you were turning. So if you're turning 19, you would put like 19 lessons I learned in the last year or whatnot. And I love the idea, and I tried to do it like 2 years ago, and I sat down and was like, I got nothing. I think I wrote down 3 and gave up. Not because I didn't learn anything. I mean, like, my head is completely empty, but I find I was just trying really hard to go for like these big things instead of focusing on the smaller things you learn over a year. So I was going for like, here's like the meaning of life kind of thing, instead of being like, I learned how to drive, you know, because both of those are equally as important things to learn, but, you know, one of them is a lot more convoluted and difficult to kind of, you know. But either way, I started the series as a kind of ongoing project over time, where I would kind of discuss or put lessons that I've learned over time. And they usually focus on relationships, on mental health, that kind of thing. And for me, it's really fun because I can kind of play around with backgrounds, work on my lettering, that kind of thing. So this is acrylic background with India ink for the lettering. So yeah. This is a scene from Spirited Away, acrylic paint. This is watercolor. I was trying to draw some orchids that were sitting in our kitchen for the longest time. I don't really love how this turned out. I find it's a little bit too, like, it doesn't have a lot of form. It doesn't have a lot of contrast, which I enjoy. But I still had fun doing it, and that's, you know, that's okay. And this was acrylic ink for the figure, watercolor for the background, which is a reverse of what I've done in the past. And I love this color in the background, this sort of like murky green, like swamp color. A lot of people hate it. They're like, it looks like vomit. I'm like, I love it. I love it. I love this color. I don't know why, so, but yeah. This page, it's important to me that people know, like, the reason I haven't posted on social media or anything is because this is not my intellectual property. First of all, this is a recreation of a painting done by an artist. I think their name is Uliana. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I'll put it in the description below there. But it's important for me to talk about this because I find that I will occasionally get tagged in people's posts where they're like, hey, this was inspired by, you know, Mercurial Milk. And it'll be like an exact recreation of my page, like word for word, same colors, same style, everything's the same. And I get a very bad vibe from that because it's not an inspiration, it would be a recreation. And I think that's an important distinction to make because, I mean, this is someone else's intellectual property. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't recreate those pages. But then, like, attribute it the right way kind of thing. Like, that's important to me as an artist that people do that, and I think it should be important for other people. So, again, I have no issue with people recreating my work, and I also very thoroughly enjoy recreating other artists' work because I find it's a really great way to learn different techniques, to kind of figure out, hey, how did they create this, like, very distinctive style of theirs? And in this case, it was, like, what this artist does is they kind of create this sort of very fluid, very interestingly moving like background, and then from it comes these scenes of like forests and animals and things like that, and I love that. I think it looked so beautiful. I wanted to give it a try, wanted to learn how it was done. I had a lot of fun with this. Very, like, I didn't have to like overwork it, which I do with everything, and so that's really fun. But it's important to me that people know that this isn't like my intellectual property. So yeah, so that's kind of, yeah. This is watercolor, and again with the acrylic background, which I realized is a very, very common theme for this journal. This was a page I did at the very beginning of the coronavirus pandemic. I realized I was kind of going back a lot to lots of apocalypse poetry, like some of the stuff I was learning back in second or third year university, Keats, T.S. Eliot, like The Hollow Man, The Second Coming is probably one of my favorite poems of all time. I just absolutely adore it. So this is the line from there. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. I think that worked really well in terms of like the year we're having, which is not even halfway done. So I can't wait to see what happens in the rest of this year. This is acrylic. And this is probably one of my favorite pages I've ever done. I love it. It's a combination of everything I adore. I love painting hands. It's watercolor. Some of my favorite colors, those sort of like dusty blues, dusty pinks. This is actually my own hands. I did this little photo shoot a little while ago where I photographed my own hands to use as references. And so I had a lot of fun with this one and really, really love how it turned out. This page. I talked about this on Instagram. I think I've talked about it in a previous video about covering up your mistakes or like not letting a mistake in a sketchbook get you down. Originally, this was a painting of a concert. So I wanted to get those like vibes of like very bright neon colors. And I wanted to get like that contrast between the darkness of a room, seeing that artist up on the stage, people's hands up in the air, like someone's phone, like the brightness from that. I love that sort of imagery. I tried to paint it. It did not turn out good. It looked really, really bad. I have really hated it. So I decided, okay, well, scratch that. Covered it up with some white paint. Decided to draw the scene of like a forest with like a well and like some trees in the background. Hated that as well. I'm like, why is this page cursed? So I was like, you know what? No, it's not. I'm going to do this again. Kind of tried over, white paint again, finally painted this. I don't love how this turned out because I always find I'm very controlling with drawing clouds, and I shouldn't be because they're clouds and they're very like fluid. But I still like had a lot of fun with this. I do like how it turned out. It's just like don't love it. But I love these colors, and next time I'll just like kind of let go a little bit when drawing clouds. I don't know what it is. I'm like, they need to look a certain way, and it's like, no, they're clouds. It's a bad word. Last time I used a bad word in a flip through, I remember getting a comment from someone being like, you shouldn't use obscenities, it like sullies your work or something like very old fashioned like that. And I was like, I'll do what I want, but thank you. Like there's nothing comparative to using certain words, you know what I mean? Like sometimes there's no other way of saying it. And also, if you've ever met a frog, you know that this is the only thing going through their head. Toad? I don't know if it's a toad. No clue. This is, I subscribe, patron, like, I don't know what it's called. When you're a patron of someone's Patreon page, it sounds really weird when you say it that way, but there's an artist I really adore, wanted to, like, support their work named Artcell, and what they did was they posted this image of a cherry, and then posted it in different kinds of like brushes on Procreate because they do a lot of digital painting, and they were like, hey, if you want to try this yourself, here's the original reference photo, give it a try. And I wanted to try it using like physical artistic materials, so color pencil, acrylic paint, gouache, and watercolor. I had a lot of fun. I find like it's great to like learn things this way, so really enjoyed that little project. This is just contrast background with figure. And I think this is almost the end. This is one of the last pages I ever did. I painted it as kind of a filler. I like remember seeing this sort of theme image somewhere in a movie ages ago, and I was like, hey, I'll paint that, why not? Didn't really think too much about it. Like I didn't really put too much effort into this page at all. I think I was watching a movie while like talking to my sister, like a million things were going on at once, and then I think it says here, I always wonder if they're coming or going, just like I wonder if you're coming or going, like talking kind of about bird migration kind of thing. And I mean, I think that this page is very cliched. I don't dislike it at all. I think it was just like, for me, it was like, hey, this was a fun thing to paint, but beyond that, I don't have too many feelings about it. And then I posted it to Instagram, and it is like one of my most popular pages of all time, which I always find is such an entertaining experience, because like you never realize that what you do or what you say or what you put out into the world has so much meaning to other people. And I think that's such a fascinating experience through social media. And so whenever people are like, oh, I don't think that this looks nice, I don't want to post it, I'm like, truly, like, you have no idea of the impact that your art can make. Like, something you think looks hideous or whatever may change somebody's life in the same way that, like, you know, something that's incredibly important to you may get overlooked by everyone. It's the world is fickle, but you have no idea. And so I always say, like, just post it. Like, it's social media, it's Instagram, whatever. Like, just post it. Like, enjoy the process. If you liked it, just send it out into the world. See what it can create, kind of thing. So that's the end. So that is the Stillman & Birn Zeta Edition sketchbook. And if you ever have any suggestions for videos you'd like to see, please put them in the comments below. I honestly have no idea what people kind of want from a YouTube channel, because I think that my tastes in terms of what I watch are very different. But if you have any suggestions, any requests, please let me know. I am always interested in hearing that, and it gives me ideas on what I can create for next time. So I'll see you guys, and subscribe if you do want to see some more content.